Hello, beautiful viewers. I'm back. So this is going to be actually the first log ever, but it is also going to be the first log for a project I'm calling the Study Buddy. Now, so this is log 0. So I'm just going to give some background to the project, but just to clarify a few things. Usually, like what log 0 would be, this is just the idea for the project and I hadn't even started yet. But since this is the first log, first time I'm doing this, this is actually going to be several. Basically, if I had, started when I'd actually started, this would be like log 7 by now. Because I actually do take logs and notes when I work on my projects. So I think I'm at like log 11 or something. It's just every time I work on the project, I just add what I did so I don't forget. But this is our log 0 since this is the first time that I'm doing this. So log 0, Study Buddy. What is it? So I first came across the project when I was, if you guys don't know history about the channel, I had a channel before this. We'll see if I say the name. Let's see if you guys can find it. But I was working with a friend, and so we were just spitballing ideas. And one idea that I came up with, we never did it because we sort of ended the channel, and I started this one. One thing I thought of was something called the Study Buddy. And the name Study Buddy doesn't come from the original idea. The original idea was that we thought it would be kind of funny to, let's say that you had a person sitting down and then they got up. And let's imagine that you're a boss, all right, an evil boss. And how would you keep this person in line, keep them working like all day, every day? Like how, like in a supervillain in a movie, how would he keep his minions in line, or she would keep her minions in line? We thought, or at least I thought of one idea was just verbally abuse them, right? Like, if you think about it, when all the time in the movies, it's usually, the minion will do something and then the villain screams at them to get back to work. But I mean, if you really think about it, the boss can't be there the whole time. So I thought of, what if we had a machine that could detect when the person was sitting down, and then it could say a pre-recorded line to the person. And that's where this idea stemmed from. Then it sort of went on the back burner, some personal stuff went on, and as part of, I'm in college for this next part for reference, I had to do a project for college, and that project was to just, you didn't have to make anything, but just come up with an idea and make a engineering orthographic drawing of it, as well as explaining what it did, what was the problem statement, what is it solving. And so I thought of this idea, and I thought, I really want to do this for my channel, so why don't I just work on it for this project? And so that's what I did, and that's where the name the Study Buddy came from, because instead of, I don't think it would have been a good idea to go to my professor and say, hey, the project that I'm working on is for people to be mean to each other, right? That's not a very good look. And so I broadened my horizon and said, okay, well, now usually what you do in engineering is you find a problem, you analyze the problem at the most simplest level, and you think of how could this be fixed? Not with pre-existing technology, but just how could it be fixed in general? And so that way you start off with a completely objective view. I sort of took it from the opposite angle. I had this vague idea of an idea, and I thought of, well, what is a problem that this could solve? And I thought, well, what if instead of using it as a way to be mean, you could use it as a way as a reminder? And I thought, okay, what if you were studying and, you get studying, you get sidetracked. Okay, you get up because you want to do something, and then instead the Study Buddy says, hey, get back to work. And you could use this for a whole plethora of things. Study example is one. The evil boss is an example. Halloween just passed recently. You could use it to set it in front of your, door, and when someone walks by, it would, because the way that it would detect if you were sitting or not, it's the same. You could use it for just basically any object. So for instance, you'll see when I show the design in a deeper level video, when I explain in a second how it works. But basically, if you just have an object and that object moves, that's how the system works. So anything where, like you could imagine as an invisible trip line almost. And so when someone walked by for Halloween, it would say a scary line. You know, there's a million ways you could use it. It's not a super complex technology. It's not super hard to make at all. But, you know, I still wanted to do this to increase my knowledge in engineering. And so I made the project, I submitted the paperwork, and then I actually got started making it. The first thing I did was, which I actually started, I think I'd actually started this step. So the timeline is, I have the idea from the old channel. I do a bunch of research into that idea, and I even bought some electronics and got a basic way of the electronics working. Then there was a huge amount of break time, and then there was the project, and so I made like a paper about it, and then there was a huge amount of break time, and then I started the project up again, and I've been working on it. I was working on it pretty consistently, and then, you know, some stuff happened in college, and so I had some break time, and now it's about now. So at this point, the project is basically completed. The only thing that isn't completed is so the electronics and the code for the project is completed, but the like physical box, you could say that like all of the electronics need to sit in, and the way that those electronics need to be organized, not not its circuitry, but it's like physically, like what parts can go on top of what parts to make it as compact as possible. That part needs to be finished, and that won't take that long. Probably what I'll do is just look at every part, make a basic rectangle in SolidWorks. SolidWorks is a 3D modeling program. If you don't know what 3D modeling programs are, I advise watching my video on my Apex Predator videos. Apex Predator is a robot I made, and I use SolidWorks, so you can see it in there. So I'll probably just do something like that, and then just see, okay, this is the volume of it is. And then I already have when I did that paper, I already designed what the box of it would look like, so. But anyway, let's actually, now that you know the history of where this project comes from, let's actually talk about what the project is. So I actually have the electronics here. So I'll use some of this, like, I don't know if these are all connected correctly. It's been a while since I've touched this, but this is basically everything. So at the heart of everything you have this is an ESP32. It's I believe the term is microchip. Tell me if I'm wrong. But basically there are sort of three simple ways you could think of computer parts. So you have your computer, which is like a human. Okay, it's very intelligent in the sense that it can do so many things, especially at the same time. And then you have one step down from that. That would be something like a Raspberry Pi. It's like a monkey. It can do a lot of complex tasks, but it's still not the same as a computer. It's super similar though. And then what I'm using is basically like a dog. It can do simple commands, but that's about it. So what you do is the way that the code works is it's a loop. So you go from, so for instance, if all that was in the code was turn a light on, turn a light off, what this machine would do is you connect it to the light via wires, and it says, okay, going down the code, turn light on, turn light off. We're at the end of the code, just go back to the top of the code, turn light on, and it would just do that infinitely, or until the heat death of the universe. And that's what it does. There's a lot more to it, which I'm gonna go in detail when I actually make my, not the log video, but just the actual presentation video. But so that's what I'm using the code. And then I have some speakers for obvious reasons. I have a screen. Basically how this is gonna work is I wanted to make it as if it was a consumer product. You could pick it up and you could look at the screen. It tells you, how to set up the device. Numerical values are related to using the device. Like for instance, like how far away you are from the device. Things like that. It'll make more sense in the detailed video. But I have buttons here. I have things that are used to connect. These mostly connect positive and negative terminals. What's one of the more important aspects are these two boys. the ultrasonic sensor, and the DF Player Mini, as well as the SD card in it. So all the DF Player Mini does is you have an SD card and you put your recordings on it. You have to do it in a specific way, but you put your recordings on it, you put it into the DF player, and then what the DF player does is you connect the speakers to the DF player, and what it can do is it can read the SD card, look at the music file, and then tell the speakers to play that music file. And through coding, that's how you do that. Don't get me wrong, I think that is super cool. It's very interesting. It's basically how the first MP3 players were made, was some sort of similar technology to this. But what I think is even cooler is the ultrasonic sensor. This is basically a bat. I mean a mammal. It uses, you could call it echolocation. Now I'm gonna be honest, I don't know the intricate details. But if I wanted to summarize, basically it's called ultrasonic. So it sends a sound wave. Now you can't hear the sound wave. It's not within our hearable range. That bounces, that hits an object. So if my finger is ultrasonic, it sends a signal. It hits here, it bounces back. The ultrasonic sensor receives that signal. It then times how long did it take for that signal to go here and bounce back. And using math, I mean, if you think about it, if you've taken calculus, this should be kind of obvious how you could do this. TLDR, using calculus, there's a thing called a derivative, where basically, or not, I don't know, would you use a derivative in this case? Let me think. You're timing how long it takes for the... So basically what you're doing is you're using that time value to measure distance. So, let me think. Yeah, so I guess it would be, because basically what you would have is, well, you know what? Why don't next log I just explain how it works, and I'll actually do some more deeper research on it, and I'll let you guys know. But essentially, you know, let's say it takes 1 second to go back. It says, okay, well, if it took 1 second to go back, that meant it took 0.5 seconds to get there. I know the speed of, it's not even, don't need to calculate this. Let's say that you know that the sound wave that you just shut out moves at 5 meters per second. Okay, well, if it took 1 second, or let's say it took 2 seconds total, so you know it takes 1 second to actually just get there and then another second to get back. It's probably more complicated than that, but I would imagine. Say, okay, well, if it's 5 meters per second, well, then it means that object is 5 meters away. There you go. Didn't even need calculus for that, actually. Didn't even need to use a derivative. But anyway, that's basically how that works. And I just think that's cool. I mean, you're using sound to measure how far away something is, and it doesn't shoot out like, I know there's ways to do a similar thing. I believe you can do it with light using laser technology. I'd have to ask, actually my grandfather, he worked with lasers, and maybe he would know. I could ask him. But I mean, it doesn't look like anything, because, you know, it's sound. It's magic. I mean, being an engineer nowadays is basically being a wizard if you were 1,000 years ago. So it's pretty cool. Let me see, is there anything else here? There's buttons. No, I think that's pretty much everything I used in here, aside if you want to count the wires. But, yeah. If you guys, I guess what I'll talk about next before I wrap up the video is just how I made this. So how do you go about making something like this? Basically, I came up with the idea, and I thought, okay, well, how would I want this to work? See, I'd already used some of these parts before. Like, I'd never used a DF player, but I had to use an ultrasonic sensor before. I've used buttons before. I've used a microcontroller before. I've used the LCD screen before. That's the screen that you use to like display text. That's all it can really do. So I thought, okay, now if I had this device in my hands and I was a consumer, what would I want? Okay, well, I'd need buttons to interact with the screen. I want the screen to, so I know what's going on. I need speakers probably. Okay, well, wait, how do I even do the sound part? I've never heard of that. So I look up, okay, what are some ways to use microcontrollers? Specifically, I started off with Arduino, but then I figured out the ESP32 would be just much better to use in general. So I switched over to that. And then, so I looked up, I did a bunch of research. It took so long to actually figure out how to get everything working. But yeah. And then, you know, once I learned that, it's just a bunch of testing. I'm like, okay, I know how to use a DF player now. Now let's write the code. The code is, I'd have to bring it up, I think it's like 800 lines long. It took me, the code's probably the hardest part out of all of this. Like this is really just trial and error to figure out how it works. Then after that, I made the huge list of code. Then I went through the code, and once I knew it like worked, I had to make the actual circuit, and I had to basically debug like a bunch of lines. Half of coding was just debugging. It's really funny when you think about it. But yeah, that's it. And I guess when I start making the body, I'll make another log. Leave a comment if you guys want to know more intricate details. I'll save your guys' comments and go over them in the next log. All right, see you guys.